As I walk through the parks and the forests, round the beautiful county of Meath, oh beautiful Meath, you've got all that I need. Your rivers, they flow with delight. Your fields are so green, there's plains to be seen, and your towns are so gay and so bright. Fishing down on the Boyne, I remember the time you would think it was all just a dream.
Hello and welcome to the latest version of the Meath Business Podcast. I'm here today in the beautiful Glen Burnie stables in Kiltale, County Meath, with the renowned national, international horse trainer Ger Lyons. Ger, how are you?
Good, Shane. Good to have you.
Thanks for coming on, Ger.
Very welcome.
You're a Kildare man originally, but you're here over 30 years, so we would call you a Meath man at this stage.
I doubt you'll ever call me a Meath man now. They say, what is it? You're always a blow-in. My kids are Meath people, all right. Yeah, no, I'll always be regarded as a blow-in, or that's the thing. But we're here. I'm here as long as I've been anywhere. Longer.
Yeah, fair enough. So you're originally from Clane. You were into horses from a young age.
Yeah, Peter McCreary was my next door neighbour, and so literally my next door neighbour. So within across the road. So grew up with the kids, Tom, William, Peter, and so there was horses around. Yeah. And I just got hooked from a very early age. The horse used to, back in them days, you'd ride the horses down the road, and the clippity clop of the horses went down the road, and you'd see it, and it was such a different time. I mean, in Clane back then, horses, racing was huge. Peter was champion trainer back then, champion trainer back then, you'd be champion trainer with 30 winners, but it was such a huge popular sport industry. Yeah. It's not now, even though it's much, much bigger. Yeah. And so I remember being walking into the colour room in their house, with the colour room being where all the jockey silks are. And when I seen the silks, that was me hooked. And right. I said, I want to be a jockey. And they always had ponies to the left of our house in a little paddock beside our house. And I remember a pony called Buster or something, and I went out and I used to ride it, or Mosquito was one of them. And I used to get on it bareback, and I think the boss caught me doing it one day. And he says, he used to be like that. He said, you can be my jockey, you can be my jockey. So right. I started going on like that, and became a jockey. And Peter died at the same age as I am now. He was 57 when he died. I was riding in England when he died. So I always had him as an old man, but when you look back at it, he's the same age now. He's the same age then when he died as I am now. So, but
did you work for him?
Oh, I did, yeah.
Yeah. Mm. And then you decided to move up to America for.
Listen, you go through all the things. I was sent down to Ballyfin to college, school. Right. By my parents, who knew nothing about horses, to get me away from horses. Like, I'd ride out before I go to school. Yeah. And for whatever reason, they were scared of me becoming a jockey. There was no security in it or whatever. So back in them days, you can see the culture now. It's however long, 40 years later. Everybody had to go to college. Yeah. But that was never on my agenda. Yeah. And for me, you can see that nowadays, because everybody is just doing college and nobody's working.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you see where I'm coming from? Whereas back then, I'd be threatened with going up to the tech. Right. Whereas nowadays, the first thing I'd say to a kid is, get yourself a trade. Yeah. You'll never be unemployed, and you'll always earn plenty of money. Yeah. So it's gone about face. Do you know, that sort of way? But anyway, they sent me down to Ballyfin, literally to get away from horses.
Right. That didn't work out too well.
No, that's typical me. If you tell me to do something, not to do something, I'll go balls out to do it. But no, I had said then, I'll tell you what I'll do the leaving, but I didn't even pick up the leaving set results. Right. I didn't care about it. I just went straight back to the yard. Did a little bit of stint with Peter, realised, unfortunately for me, his kids, his lads and me were the same age. Okay. So we were all coming up the same time. So the right thing to do would become an amateur jockey. That didn't suit with me, because the three of them were amateurs. Mm-hmm. So basically Peter made me a pro which wasn't the right thing to do. Left me in a little bit of no man's land for a year or so.
Right.
And then when you can't see the woods for the tree, when you know, back then, every second person was a jockey.
Right.
Now you wouldn't pick a jockey out of 100 people. Do you know where I'm coming from? The whole thing has changed.
Yeah.
And like for me, there was 10 of me in every yard.
Right.
Whereas now you wouldn't get one of you.
Okay.
They're just not being made anymore.
Yeah.
So I seen, like, America was, I just said, you know, again, typical me, I went, this isn't working. And rather than go to England or anything, I just said, I'm going to America. And America was an unbelievable experience. But they sent me back to England, but then the jockey thing took off a little bit and went from there. And how you end up being a trainer is you fail at being a jockey. Simple as.
You were 4 years at a jockey, but you...
All I'd say was longer than that, but I got badly injured.
England.
Yeah, badly. I was in there about 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
I got badly injured, and they messed up the injury. This leg here was, I have a picture of it there, it was wrapped around my head and broke my ribs, punctured a lung and broke a shoulder in one fall. But they put the wrong pin in the leg, and back then we'd rehabilitate with what was it, Lily Shaw, which is where the pro footballers went, the soccer players. So we were all messing. It was a great hour. It was good. Like, they looked after you very, very well. But I was in a lot of pain, not knowing that the pin they had put in was too big. So I had so by the time they realised that, I'd done a year's rehab, sort of got past fit to come back riding, knowing it wasn't right.
Yeah.
And then we had to reset it and start again.
Right.
So then I got a couple of falls on the. The aim was to ride in the Grand National. I was to ride, the horse I got hurt off was third in the National, Mononor. So I was to ride him in the National that year, and I said I had a horse called Harley. I think he won the Topham or something, but he was the National horse, and I said I have to ride in the National. So I was gung ho to come back to ride him in the National, and I did. And I remember pulling up. We got round and I pulled up, looked up to the stands, and I went, it was such an anticlimax. Do you know what I mean? It was just wasn't what I had dreamed of all those years as a kid, watching Red Rum and things like that. And I looked up and I went, you know, this is not for me.
Right.
So, it was just, and again, that's me. That's typical who I am. I'd be very impulsive.
Okay.
You know, and I just said, I'm out.
Right.
And
You're about 26 then?
26 when we stopped, and
well, it's hard to know where to go then when at that age.
I was very lost. Took me 10 years to get over that, I would say. Now, this is all in hindsight.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Took me a good 10 years to get over that. When you're a sportsman, a professional sportsman that's doing something you really love, and that's taken away from you, you don't see it at the time. You know, but personality-wise changed completely. You know, I got angry and a lot of stuff went on. I would say I got depressed or things like that. Things that you didn't understand back then. Yeah. But then we decided we'd move home here. We were lucky enough to find this place, which I call heaven. This is things happen for reasons. And this happened for a reason. And
did you come home with the view of going into horse training?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. I don't know what I think I was thinking of becoming a journalist.
Right.
In the media. It was just at that time, it was before the racing channels and all that, but they were becoming talked about. They were on the horizon, and you know, I could have gone down that road, if you know what I mean. Like that, they were becoming the next thing.
Yeah.
So that's probably where I seen myself. And next thing I was in here, and sure, this was needing doing up, and we gradually had to do this up quietly. And you get one horse, you get two horses, and then typical me, I wanted to have 102 horses, and here we are.
Yeah.
You know.
So you were tipping away with horses, and you got into trading then.
No, we were tipping away at the horses, but like I wasn't going to be here training a horse or one winner.
Yeah.
I wanted to be champion trainer.
Okay.
As simple as that.
Yeah.
To do that or to build a place, you had to trade.
Yeah.
So in other words, I seen, now again, I'm not saying I was the first, but I was one of the first, the guys that seen the gap in the market where Aidan was beating us in the maiden and I was running second, say. So you weren't buying Aidens. You couldn't buy Aiden's, but you could buy mine for Hong Kong or whatever. Back then it was mainly Hong Kong. So you could turn 10, 20 grand into a little bit more than that. So you make profit and put it back into the business again, bam, 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 bam. Nowadays, Aiden's selling everything.
Okay.
Like even his Derby winners down in Australia sold as a handicapper. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so now the whole thing has changed. But that's purely economics driven in the sense that our prize money is so poor in England and Ireland, in Britain and Ireland, that we have now become, while we profess and we are the best in the business at breeding, training, racing, riding, etc. Japan has left us behind, Hong Kong has left us behind, America has left us behind, France has left us behind in terms of prize money. Okay. So we still have to trade to keep the show on the road.
Right.
And until that changes, which it won't happen in my lifetime, so by definition we're selling our best stock still, so we're racing our second best stock. Right. Does that make sense to you? Yes. So what's the answer to that is, like, all of them jurisdictions that I'm talking about, like Japan set out maybe when I started training, even maybe before it, a long-term plan, and that's coming into fruition now. They were bright. Do you know what I mean? They're able to buy, for example, even so, who won the Oaks from me, they were able to buy her. They were able to buy Siskin, who won the Guineas from me. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas back when I was a kid, them horses would never be sold. They were Blue Diamond.
Okay.
Do you see where I'm coming from? But that's the nature of the business. So what's happened in my lifetime in the sport is, when I was growing up, the winner's enclosure was sacrosanct. That was where you wanted to be. Whereas now the sales ring is sacrosanct. There's majority of horses sold, they will never have a bigger day in their careers than what's happening to them in the sales ring, right. Which is sad.
Yeah.
So the winner's enclosure over here is nearly secondary. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me, but that's where we are.
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose, when did the model start to change, where you started keeping horses?
If we haven't, that hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. I mean, I thought even with the introduction of Juddmonte and big owners like that in, but nobody is beyond.
Right.
You can't look any particular owner in the eye and tell them, we're getting X for this horse. Yeah. We may keep it.
Okay.
When you'll never win that for them. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like I even like when I've trained 2 classic winners, and the 2 of them were sold within the week.
Right. Yeah.
That answers his own question.
Yeah, fair enough.
And as I says, Aiden sold, I can't think of the name. I think it was the Derby winner that Emmett rode, Emmett McNamara, and that's racing down in Australia.
Yeah.
Do you know? So money talks.
Yeah. So you've some big owners now, as you mentioned there, Juddmonte, you've Newtown Anner, you've Mygler selling your horses. I'd imagine that the standard of horse that you have here now has improved greatly since it did.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And like last year, I think over 30% of my runners were stakes winners.
Right. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
You know, like we've had a slow start to the year, but we 2 winners on Sunday, and they were group 3s. Do you know? So that's important. But and that matters. Do you know? But I set the bar where I have a certain rating that a horse gets to, and if it goes below that, I don't want it. And people say it's okay for him, but that's not where I didn't start there.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't want it is because if I'm going to get up here and work this hard and train this hard, I want to like what I'm training. If I wanted to fill the yard with rubbish, I would and could, because I buy enough of it. But the secret is I can move them on, you know.
Yeah. When you started training, you took out a dual license, so you were national hunts as well. I know big and bold won a Powers Gold Cup, but shortly after that, you decided to concentrate on the flat. Yeah,
he was injured. I wasn't enjoying it, Shane. Right. Like, I mean, he was injured and I loved him, but I get too invested in him. But the national hunt was too long term for me. Like, if you give me your yearling, which is what I live for, and I'll train it, it'll start being broken at the end of my season, which is November. So November, December, it'll be going through its what I call baby infants. January, February is senior infants. March, first class, second class, all the way through, yeah? But when I look you in the eye and say, I can put a rating on that horse, that's me done. Right. Unless it's a nice horse.
Okay.
Do you know, so that's how long my attention span is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if I can't look at that horse too much longer if it's just a horse.
Right, Fair enough.
And unfortunately, that's who I am. That's what I am, and it just doesn't float my boat. So I mean, I think in the last week we've moved on 4 horses. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Now there's plenty of guys who'll take them and and fun with them, and that's the beauty about it.
Yeah.
And I wish them, luck. And I've been very good to lads like that. You've loads of my horses running around, but that's what floats their boat. Good luck to them. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. Fair enough. And when you're going to buy a yearling at the sales, what do you look for? Is it pedigree or is it?
Well, the one thing I have learned is an ounce of pedigree is worth a ton of feed. There's no question about that. But like you would think after 30, 40 years doing the job, where we started at rock bottom, you would think we've worked our way right to a certain level. We found last year, like the prices have gone phenomenal, like that we couldn't play last year.
Yeah.
I think we bought 1 horse at our money last year that we could. When I say our money, any fool can go in there and keep bidding, and plenty do, because they've got plenty behind them. But we have to buy value. Like we're still buying, like what I'd call a lot of money, say 70 to 100 grand is a lot of money, especially if it's no good. Because the minute a hammer drops on the horse and it's knocked down to me, its value is 0 until I prove that it's a nice horse again. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So if I buy 10 horses at 100 grand, it's £1 million.
Yeah.
It's not so bad when you say it quick, but say them 10 horses are useless. How long will I last doing that?
Not very.
Yeah. So like last year, like I'd go in and my average spend back in the day building this would have been 20, 30 grand. They were the horses that I was trading on to Hong Kong. A 20, 30 grand horse now is 70 to 100 grand. You're not buying any better quality. You're buying the same horse, but that's the cost of them. See where I'm coming from? And the horses that were on my list that I was wanting, and I'd value them at the 100 for argument's sake, just to give you a figure, we're making 3 plus.
Right.
So if you don't have discipline and you go in and you just keep paying the 3 plus for a horse you value at 100, how long are you going to last?
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Now the other side of that is, like a football team, the secret to a success of any trainer is the sourcing of his horses. So if he can't source the horse, he doesn't have a flow of stock. If I don't have players, I can't win the match. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my sourcing has been curtailed with the cost of these horses. Now, I'm in a better situation than a lot of people in the sense that I've Newton Anner or Moigler or Judmont.
Yeah.
But say they send me in a bunch of rubbish. They won't intend to do it.
Yeah.
But even the best owners breed rubbish.
Yeah.
And say I get... Do you see how...
Yeah.
The most perfect example of the slide down the scale would be John Ox. So possibly the greatest horse I've ever seen, would be See the Stars.
Yeah.
Trained immaculately by the man, who was as good as there has ever been as a trainer. And I'll stand corrected, but it was within 5 years he wasn't training because his source stopped.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from? Yeah. And that's how ruthless this game is. Yeah. It's a little bit, if you look, I don't know that you follow the Premiership, it's a little bit like Liverpool. Liverpool were kicking the arse off everybody last year. Phenomenal. What are they doing this year?
Yeah,
how can such a quality team get so bad in 6 months? It's the very same with a racehorse trainer.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's all about sourcing.
Yeah. So if you can't source the horse, you were buggered.
Yeah. Is there various steps in your career where you see as markers? Like El Tel winning the Queen Mary, Lightning Power winning First Group 1, and progressing from there. Do you see them as stepping stones or markers as a sign of the business progressing?
No. El Tel was in a very bad period of my time. I would say I was very close to quitting that in 2007. Because I couldn't see where the future was. Do you understand? But then El Tel, or what you call her, Lightning Pearl, won the Cheveley Park. What I'm noticing, it really is, it probably says more about me than it does. But like I had 2 winners on Sunday, What day are we here now? Thursday. That's gone. That's history.
Yeah.
It's nice. What did they do for me? Like, I know El Tel was 2007.
Yeah.
I can't think what year Lightning Pearl was. And I think 2000, we were in the middle of COVID for the classics. Was that 20? So all they are is markers in time.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
If you think you've cracked it at that moment in time, you're in for a big shock. Do you know? Because now I have to go. Like, for example, Even So won, she was sold. Siskin won, he was sold.
Yeah.
I have to replace them.
Yeah.
How the hell do you replace them?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you think you've cracked it because you've trained a winner or whatever, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
You've got to keep pedaling hard. Like, that's
It's very competitive.
and it gets you a bit tired. But that's now there's other lads who probably don't strive as hard as you do. You know, they're happy with whatever their lot is. That's what makes the world go round. Yeah. But me, if I train 100 winners this year, I want to train 200 next year. Or, do you see where I'm coming from? And if I don't, it's been a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Do you know? So maybe somewhere in between you should have the happy medium. But that's the animal I am, and maybe that's who I am. You know, it's why my wife goes on holidays on her own.
How many horses have you in the yard?
91 or 2, I think.
Yeah.
93, something like that.
And staff?
You're always between 30 and 50.
Right.
And could always use double that.
Yeah.
But they're not being made anymore. Nobody wants to work in our game. This all sounds very negative, but I'm being very realistic to you. You know, like as I said, back in my day, in my class in school in Clane, if there was 40 kids, 10 of us would have wanted to have been jockeys or would have discussed it. I dare you go up to the local primary and find me a jockey.
Yeah.
Because they're not there. If they were, they'd be down right now for me.
And it'd be like your parents pushed them to college if they did want to.
The whole world has changed. Like, I heard the other day, somebody saying that they're pushing for a 4-day week. We're buggered if they start that crack. Yeah. Do you know, like, we're 7 days a week. Yeah. Imagine talking to my staff, telling them you can't do 4 days a week. Like, the horse needs to be looked after for 7 days a week. The world is such a different place, but this is a breed of farming. Like, once you have an animal, a live animal, it has to be looked after 24/7. And all of these, and I'm going to sound prehistoric by saying this, all of these PC things that have been brought in, yeah, I know some of them, and most of them have been needed, but a lot of goodwill and the way what I call the good old Irish way the way I was reared is gone. We've lost it. And like back in the day, like people who come in here part-time to work and love to be with their horses, not happening anymore because you can't insure them. Do you know what I mean? Like, everything has we've lost a lot of what was good about Ireland with all of the things that we've gained, if that makes any sense. But anyway, different conversation.
So retention is obviously a big thing. You do have staff.
I'm lucky. Like, with the people, I have people here with me for years. My head lad, for example, when I moved in here, he was 13 years of age. He was the first person I ever employed. He's in his 40s now with 5 kids. Right. House built down in Kilmessan. Great man, big GA man in Kilmessan, Martin Horn. He's been with me. Do you see where I'm coming from? And I have Andrew Duff's with me, my brother's with me, 2 girls in the office run the show. They're with, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we're blessed that way. Yeah. But we could do with that multiplied by 2. They're just not there.
Yeah. So your biggest achievements, you touched on Siskin and Even So, two classics. I remember watching the video of you during COVID times. Siskin, that was probably your biggest, well, 2 of them biggest achievements.
Oh, you're winning classics. That's what we do this job for, yeah. Yeah. And then the Siskin thing was a different scenario. Like, Aidan had a battalion out after us, and like, my man doesn't get nervous calling, but he was nervous that day because he knew he was drawn on the rail, and he knew, how am I going to get out of here? Yeah. And like, he did. I have a huge saying that I live by: what's meant for you won't pass you. But I really worried for the two of us that day. Do you know what I mean? Okay. But it worked.
Yeah.
Again, what was the emotion? It was relief. Yeah. And sitting here, where are we 3 years later or whatever, it's brilliant because I can look you in the eye. I can go on an airplane with you and unless there's salespeople going over, I can guarantee you there's probably only one lad on the airplane who's trained a classic winner. But it's in the past. And I have to do that again. And until I retire, it better add, or else it hasn't worked.
You must get great enjoyment from watching Colin's career. For you, obviously, I gave him the opportunity.
I didn't. No, he. There's nothing. No, I'm just a passenger, and I get huge satisfaction watching what he's doing because he's the best at what he's doing, and he's such a nice person. I take it too personally in the sense that, am I holding him back? Have I got the equipment to keep him up there in number one? Part of me wants him to go and take the big job. Part of me doesn't want him to go and take the big job. Do you know what I mean? And I wish I wasn't so invested in it. But like him and Kerry have a place down there in Trim now, and like he seems to be very satisfied. He's with his peace. He's one of those. He has a much better temperament than me. Like when he's fighting for the championship, it doesn't seem to take a bat out of him, but it kills me. Do you know what I mean? And I would hope that I can just back off that a bit because it's not my fight. Do you know what I mean? I need to look after myself and stop getting so involved in these things. But he's champion, and I don't want him not to be champion because of me. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And the new season's just started, so what would be your objectives? I know you'd love to win.
At this moment in time, to survive, because it couldn't have started any worse.
Right.
Couldn't have started any worse. We have a very ordinary bunch of older horses. We haven't run anything. We had purposely said we're not going to start anything on this heavy ground until after Punchestown. Punchestown was last week before. So we've kicked on, but the ground is still heavy. And we're going to need the 2-year-olds to be good, because as I said, the older horses are average. If I get close to the type of winners we're consistently training every year, it'll be a good success. But it'll be a salvage. We're in salvage mode at the minute, so it's looking like a very long year. It sounds depressing, doesn't it? But it's realistic. You have to be realistic. If I went out there thinking that they were anything other than what they are, we'd be in big trouble.
Yeah. I suppose an overall career objective, champion trainer.
I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want to be champion trainer. I'd take your hand off to be champion trainer, but it ain't going to happen. And that's not being negative. I can't be champion trainer because Joseph has 300 horses, Aidan's the same. I just can't beat them.
Right.
You know, like I'm breaking 2 million the last 2 years. It's a prize money event. Put it in perspective, I think Aidan's on 4. I'm balls out to be 2. Ain't going to happen. Okay. Unless I'm going to win every classic in that season and every big race in that season. Ain't going to happen. So we can park that one.
Well, Ger, I hope it will happen at some stage, but I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and giving your time, and all the best for the
no problem. Wish you the best luck with the podcast.
Thanks.
Cheers, Shane.
Right.
Thank you.
All that I need, your rivers they flow with delight. Your fields are so green, there's plains to be seen, and your towns are so bright. Fishing down the Boyne, I remember the time you would think